Okay, so we're going to take a look at the different reasons behind why a correlation might exist. So what a correlation is, again, is it's a measurement basically of a relationship between two variables. So if something has a low correlation coefficient, that means that it is showing a very weak relationship. If it has a 0 correlation coefficient, there's no relationship whatsoever. If it has a correlation coefficient that is close in magnitude to a 1, that means that it has a strong or even perfect correlation. So it means that the points are following a linear model exactly or very closely if it's close to 1. Now, when there is a correlation present, there could be a bunch of underlying reasons for those to be there. So if we take a look at those 5 reasons, the first and most obvious is called cause and effect. So what that states is that whatever change in variable x occurs, the change in variable y has happened because of that change in variable x. So if I change the independent variable, it's caused something to change in the dependent variable. And that's been shown through a very rigorous experimental or inferential study. So they've ruled out anything else causing those changes, any extraneous variables causing those changes. The second type is actually reverse cause and effect. And it basically means that when someone was hypothesizing what this relationship was and why it was occurring, they thought the independent variable was causing a change in the dependent variable. But what is actually occurring is the dependent variable is causing the change in the independent variable. So it's actually in reverse. So the y is causing the change in the x. Another type that is very common is common cause. So what common cause is it basically says that there's actually a third variable that is changing, and that change is causing both your x and your y to change. So often say like there's a variable z that's causing the independent and the dependent variable to change in a similar way. Then there's a presumed relationship. So what a presumed relationship means is that, well, it kind of makes sense that these two things are related and we can see that they tie together, but we can't really say definitively because there hasn't been an experimental study done that has shown enough evidence that the change in the independent is what's causing the change in the dependent. They haven't ruled out a common cause factor. They haven't ruled out it being reverse. They haven't ruled out any effects from extraneous variables, all of that kind of thing. And the last one is accidental. And that's when the two things show a correlation, but there's no real logical relationship existing between those two variables. They just happen to both be going up, or both be going down, or one going up and one going down, showing a negative correlation. But there's no real reason for it, just happens to be occurring. So now let's take a look at an example of each one of these. So for cause and effect, the gas in a container shows a positive correlation with the pressure. Independent variable would be the temperature. As temperature increases, it actually causes more pressure on the container itself, because what temperature is it's the movement of the molecules. So if molecules are moving more, they're going to hit each other more often, and they're going to cause more pressure. So the change in temperature is directly causing the change in the pressure. Reverse cause and effect could be something like the amount of cars on the road and the number of lanes on that roadway. So most people think that if there's more traffic in an area, it causes cities to build more roadways. And this is why a lot of roadways get widened when there are a lot of traffic jams. They think, let's solve this problem by just widening the road and adding more lanes. But what actually occurs, and this has been researched since as far back as the 50s, is that when you widen a road and add more lanes, more people decide to go on those roads. So they change their traffic patterns or their transportation patterns to start driving on those roads because the roads are now wider and the traffic jam ends up coming back within a year or two. So it's actually the number of laneways that are causing more cars to use that road. Common cause, Could be a negative relationship existing between an independent variable number of retail outlets in a town and a dependent variable number of farms. So the number of retail outlets are not causing more farms to pop up in town. What's actually causing these two changes, the number of retail outlets is not causing the number of farms to go down. What's actually causing both of these changes is probably population density. So as a town gets more populated, retail outlets and things like that end up becoming more popular. And unfortunately, the land for the number of farms, land gets really expensive, and so the farmers can't afford to farm that type of land anymore. And so the number of farms goes down. So we would say that population density is the common cause factor behind this correlation. A presumed relationship. A positive correlation has been shown between time spent listening to Baby Einstein music and the first grade reading mark. So what we're saying here is that the more time you spend listening to Baby Einstein as a baby, you end up being able to read at a faster pace or at a higher level in first grade. So those they make sense to be a relationship, but there's a lot more things going on there, right? And there has not been a experimental, rigorous study that shows this causes the other thing. What's more likely is that there's a lot of extraneous variables going into how a person parents, what type of parents would be showing these Baby Einstein music videos, or listening to the music with their babies and that kind of thing. And then accidental relationship. Positive correlation exists between federal budget on military and the amount of kale consumed. So both of those are going up. When we spend more money on military, people eat more kale. But what's actually probably just going on there is they're just both increasing over time. So more recently we spent more money on military, but also more recently kale has become really popular. Historically, we haven't spent as much money on military because it wasn't as expensive and we just didn't put as much emphasis on it. And kale wasn't as popular in the past, so they both just happen to be going up.